Well, good evening, everybody, or good morning and good afternoon, whenever you're watching this later on. My name is Sharon Chaden-Burks. I'm so glad that you are all here today. I am bringing to you, let me go back. This is the IDEA networking session. IDEA stands for Instructional Designers and Educators Alliance. I've been doing this for 3.5 years, and I'm so excited to bring you 3 new guest speakers. We have Michal Doutsh, Sarah Fischer, and Steve Corney, who has been on before, and he is back to share about his mentoring program. So as our guest speakers are talking, please feel free to write down your questions. So you will have time to go into breakout rooms and ask more questions to guest speakers that you're really interested in speaking with. Also, feel free to use the chat to put in your LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with people or other resources. If you want to share how it's going, you're welcome to do that too. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to spotlight Michal and she will take over.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Michal, and today I want to talk about networking. I think that's like the biggest pillar of my job searching journey. So I'm going to start from the end, and then I'm going to go to the start. Networking is what helped me when I was looking for a job. Now let's go back. I've been a teacher for 15 years. And when I lived in Israel, while I was being a teacher, I was developing materials for the Israeli army. 18 months ago, I had my son, my first son, and that's when I decided that it was the right time for me to go on a maternity leave. It was not on a maternity leave, sorry. The right time for me to do this transition. I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I was also really surprised by how my school was not so great with my leave and my medical insurance. And I was thinking, you know what? I think that this is really the right time to make this kind of change. I finally found a job 4 months ago, and I can share that I've been looking for a job for about 6 months out of my 18 months maternity leave. So what did I do? How did I start? Let me tell you just a bit about my role today. I can talk about it more later on. I work in a tech company called NICE Solutions, and I'm a technical knowledge developer. I help support creation of knowledge for internal teams. We have the technical support, implementation teams. They need a lot of knowledge. I help support that. So how did I get here? Like, what was my first step? I started by just Googling teachers transitioning. Then I found, the LinkedIn group. Can't remember the name now. Is it?
Teaching the TLPD?
Yes, this one. I found it through Google. Then I went to LinkedIn. Okay. Then I started speaking to my friends, whom I trust. And a friend of mine said, okay, Michal, listen, you need to do 3 things. Open a LinkedIn. I didn't have LinkedIn. Open a LinkedIn, have 100 relevant connections, like connections of people that you feel comfortable turning to, say, hi, can you connect me with this and that? And the third thing, so I said, open LinkedIn, have 100 connections, and then work on your resume. But don't wait until your resume is perfect before you send it. Now, to each their own. I'm just sharing my journey and how things worked for me. As a perfectionist, I knew that perfectionism is my biggest obstacle. So I knew that if I would wait for my resume to be perfect, I'm never going to be sending it out. So I wrote something, I sent it to friends to be revised, and then I started sending resumes. Now, how did I send resumes? Hold on. And cover letters. How did I work on it? I spoke to every single person I knew, and I told them that I was looking for a job, and I told them what I was looking for, and I asked if they have someone in mind that I can speak to. And almost everyone shared people that they think can be helpful for me. And even if the people that they shared were like a stretch, completely far away from my goal, I spoke to them. I never said no to having a conversation. I had in those 6 months, I went over my calendar. I think it was about 30 conversations. So like at least once a week. And every person I spoke to, I told them this sentence at the end of the conversation. I said, every person I speak to, I ask them if they have someone in mind that they can connect me with. And like I figured my motto was no shame. And it was my motto because I felt so embarrassed. I just reached out to everyone. And when I say, okay, let me tell you how the people I spoke to helped me. Some of them became my mentors and they met me regularly to work on my resume. I didn't have much money to go through courses, to pay for someone to change my resume. But I was lucky that I had a good support system of friends who connected me with other friends. They worked with me on my resume. They told me, what language is working now in the industry. If you want, in our breakout rooms, I can share my resume. We can go over this if you wish. They worked with me on my cover letter. They worked with me on interviews. I met some of them before I had a big interview. Let's talk about how Sharon, how long do I have left?
Probably start wrapping up in the next minute and then
Okay.
share the rest for breakout rooms.
Sure. So I think I'll talk more in the breakout rooms about how I got the interviews, but in general, the only places who would interview me, the only companies who would interview me were companies that I was referred to. That's the only interviews that I got. Like even if the position was so far-fetched, I never thought I would get it, but I got the interview if someone referred me. And I think that in the breakout rooms, I'm going to talk a lot more about referrals and what I did for referrals, because I have a lot to say about that. Let me see if I had anything else to add before I wrap this up. No, eventually I did found this job that I now have through a friend of a friend who knew that I was looking for a job, and she reached out to me. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you. So about the portfolio, I'll just say I thought about it a lot. Portfolio was my next step. I was about to prepare one, but I ended up feeling that connections were working strong for me. And if I get through the right connection, I can get a job interview. I'll get the interview. It didn't matter for me if I would like get an instructional design role that I know that I would get only with a portfolio, or if I would get like just a stepping, like a foot in the door into this general industry of education in the tech world of learning and development. So I didn't have to have a portfolio because I was open to many like different kinds of positions in this world. And let me know if there was any other relevant question in the chat, because I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, not so far.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for talking about the networking component, because I know it can be scary, Like you said, it takes a huge, leap of faith and putting in vulnerability and being like, help. All right, let's push forward to Sarah. I'm gonna spotlight you.
Sounds good. Hey folks, my name's Sarah, she, her. I'm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. I'd love to know where you're based and what your learning superpower is, your L&D superpower, if you want to drop that in the chat, just so I have a general geographical context for us. And then Sharon, would you mind turning on closed captions too, just so we're accessible for folks who maybe have to turn their headphones off, or someone in it. Thank you.
That look good?
Great. Dayton, Ohio, Melbourne, Australia, New Jersey. Nice. Connecticut, Chicago area, North Carolina. Wow, it must be late in Egypt, right? 7 hours ahead, 8 hours ahead. 2 a.m. Wow. All right, thanks, folks. So my L&D superpower is making the complex seem simple. And if you are in the classroom, I just want to start by saying teachers are asked to wear too many hats, and that thank you for your service. I spent a decade in the classroom in TAing in higher ed, and then in high school and middle school classrooms in Minnesota. Yeah, so I'm just going to start at the beginning and work forward. I graduated from undergrad at a time when it was very hard to get a teaching job. So I went and got my master's in curriculum and instruction because I like student debt. And then I was able to get a job in Minnesota and very quickly realized that I prefer work teaching adults to adolescents, and work to snatch up every single professional development opportunity I could. Like if they wanted a presenter and I knew something about it, I volunteered. So I could pad my resume with adult learning experiences and public speaking, the different types of things that instructional design roles and L&D roles are looking for. And then as the pandemic hit and I had a little more time, I went and got a graduate certificate in instructional design from a public university. There's a ton of great programs out there. I am not advocating for one boot camp or graduate program over another. I'm not here to sell you anything. I've just been in the teaching role and saw a pathway out. But touching on networking, that graduate program is how I got my first instructional design job. So through the network, a professor recommended me, and I got a junior instructional design role doing QA and access to Storyline, which was really important. Sorry, I live in a big city, and I'm sure you can hear the sirens. They're past us. And so that is when I started reverse engineering everything I could in Storyline. So I would find a project that I liked online and reverse engineer it, like start backwards, the end product, and figure out how to get there. I believe there's a 30-day free trial for Storyline, but you can use multiple emails, which definitely goes against their terms and services, and I would never recommend that. But you can also use email masking, since Storyline is very, very expensive. I think it's like $3,800 a year for a single license, but that's the name in the game. And so from there, I was still in the classroom then. So I was juggling multiple jobs. And I knew in the spring of 2021 that I wouldn't be returning to the classroom, and I started job searching full time. It was my full-time job to find another job. And I was talking with my husband, and we were just like, you know, most teachers have to like say they're not coming back by a certain date, and I waited until that very last day. Oh, it's over. That's good to know with the education discount. It was not that way a couple of years ago. And then, yeah, so I ended up, I don't want to age myself too much, but I'm a student of the MySpace generation. And so I leaned into that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and spiced up my resume that way and kind of fell into tech. And that's, you know, I say that in almost every interview because I'm like, you know, MySpace was such a great introductory to tech for a lot of people, and myself included. But so that's how I ended up in B2B, which is business to business, and SaaS, software as a service. Unfortunately, in November 2023, I got notice that I was going to have to lay my entire team off due to they've moved the entire customer education department overseas. And then the next Monday, I got my own layoff notice. So I'm currently moving around looking for opportunities. However, the market is very, very different now than it was in 2021. I would say there are a lot of companies out there who are not acting with integrity in the salaries they're offering or the benefits they're offering. And that I would just implore you to value your time and resources, and don't accept jobs or interview for jobs that, you know, are paying what you can make at Target. There's a lot of companies acting without integrity right now and trying to take advantage of folks trying to leave the classroom. Yeah, thank you. It's, you know, layoffs are reality in tech. Unfortunately, you know, it used to be different, but that's the way the cookie crumbles these days. And I don't want to say it like I took January to apply to jobs and practice interviewing and doing all these things. And I did a ton of professional development that I haven't had time for, and upskilling. Like it's hard, but it was also an opportunity for me to polish some skills. Like I finished the Google project management course and that type of thing, where I just hadn't made it a priority before. So I think that is just about the right amount of time for Steve to take over. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. Steve, are you ready?
Dude, tough one to follow. And I just hope that Zoom closed captions can keep up with my Aussie accent, because it's failed in the past. Hello, folks. Great to see you all. Thank you for having me back, Sharon. It's always a pleasure to come in and hang out with the soon-to-be or newbies into the world of ID. I've been an instructional designer, or in inverted commas, because I reckon you could all out-design me, but I've been one for 16 years or so. It's been my career. It's been a privilege to be part of the industry, but I took a very different path. I chose agency life very, very quickly, because I didn't like working on the same project. I didn't like the same company. So I wanted to work with all the companies, and giving myself that control was very important to me early on. But one of the big things that stands out for me in this sector, and I've seen it go from, you know, the rise of Rise all the way through to where it is now, which, you know, Sarah so adequately and so well articulated in terms of the struggles that are going on in this world. The thing hasn't changed, is that the way that you get into this industry, it's still the same. You still have to go through, you have to find a job, you have to interview for a job, and you have to be able to demonstrate your capability. How you do that, though, you can be very smart. One of the biggest challenges that I see with new to industry IDs is, hey, I don't have a job to do projects and show off my projects in my portfolio. So how can I start a portfolio? How can I get a job to get experience, to get a project to do my portfolio on? And then you might get a project, and then you'll get slapped with this beautiful 3-letter word or acronym called NDA, which means you can't show the bloody thing. So you're screwed either way, right? Like it's doom and gloom straight out of the gates. Unless you take a different look at how and what a portfolio actually is. So for me, what I've done is I've looked at portfolios, and as a hiring manager, I've hired hundreds of instructional designers for contracts, for projects, for groups of teams to go and pitch on tenders. And what I've seen is using video for your portfolio, and using, say, Loom. Loom is a free screen recorder, to walk your hiring manager or walk your audience through your project, allows you to never have to create a full project ever again to demonstrate your skills as an instructional designer. What do I mean by that? I mean that you could just create one interaction in Storyline, go into Loom and screen record. And for those of you who don't know how to screen record, it's time to practice. And just go, hey, it's Steve here. I'm an instructional designer. I want to show you how cool this interaction is for this project that I built, where I've got like a number slider and some cool variables. What do you think? Done. Like 30 seconds and maybe 2 hours worth of work in Storyline, you're done. Does the audience need to know that you don't have a full project built? No. Do I care? No, because the second part of my point here is, as a hiring manager, what am I actually looking for when I come to hiring a bunch of instructional designers or an ID? And what I care about is not so much the how good you are at designing. What I care about is why you design the way you do. I want to know what makes you tick and how you think, because I can teach you how to design. I can improve your design capability. Well, not me, but my designers can, and I can help you think more effectively. But What I care most about is, why did you choose Storyline to build a mobile responsive, mobile first program for a young audience age 16 to 24? Because there are 4 other tools, Evolve, Chameleon, Rise, and Genially. There you go. See, testing me on my tool knowledge, that would do a better job for a mobile first experience. I want to hear that instead of, hey, I spent 64,000 hours building this complex variable thing that doesn't even work on a mobile device. So hearing how you think as an instructional designer is much more valuable to me as a hiring manager than how you design and what you can design. So focus on the why and then think about some videos. But in the breakout rooms, if you want to know more, we can go into a bit more detail and I can show you that. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be an instructional designer, folks. Really, really excited. And I'll catch up with the chat. I'll type all the answers. Anyone that's typed a question in there, I'll catch up now and get your answers back to you. Sharon, over to you.
All right. Do you want to take that one question before? There was one. So you're a contractor with multiple contract roles. Do you want to address that before we?
Oh, yeah, cool. No, so my name is Steve. I run an agency called Learn Awesome, learnawesome.com.au. We're an agency and we have a bunch of designers that work in our agency. We've got some core, and then we've got a bunch of freelancers or contractors that we bring in for projects when we need them. Yeah. Great question.
Did I get that? Did I get your domain right in the chat?
Dude, you crushed it, man. Even the .au.
I got it wrong the first time and I remembered. So got to add the AU. Okay. Let me come back here. Man, we covered so many different topics in the last 25 minutes. I feel very good about how much we've got to. So let's pause here and open some breakout rooms. Okay, welcome back, everybody. One thing that I shared in the chat earlier was training, learning, and development community. They had a virtual conference last week that I spoke at, and I shared my top skills and competencies from my teaching days that transferred to my ID job. So I'm going to share that presentation in the link in the chat here, so you can take a look at that if you want that. Want to make sure that you know the next time we're meeting is Tuesday, March 5th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And the registration link is in the agenda, and I'll also put it in the chat if that is easier for you. And let's open it up for whole group Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? I want to ask the group.
Can I add something that I forgot to say? I'm sorry, I just love
Yeah,
talking
go ahead.
too much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one other thing is to put yourself out there, and it has a lot to do with no shame that I said. So I went to all the Facebook groups that I'm a part of. For example, I'm a member in the Facebook group Moms of the Upper East Side. So it has thousands of moms in New York City, thousands. And usually you see these posts being anonymous. I mean, but I just posted a picture of me, and I wrote about myself, and then I'm looking for a job and what I'm looking for. And I think that it's really important, like, how do you write this post, and being vulnerable and really just telling a lot about yourself and what you think you can do, like, to your own horn. And people were very cooperative, and people were I got a lot of referrals through that. So I think that while people might find it embarrassing to really just put yourself out there, I think that's a good idea too.
Oh, did Sharon just disappear? Is that what happened?
I don't know.
Am I in charge now? I'm going to take charge. Yes.
Sure, you're welcome to.
I had that musical, "This Is My Moment." I had that song just stepping into my head, Sharon. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Steve, I had a quick question. I saw you, if I could be in 3 breakout rooms at once, I would have been.
Totally. Like me not being, we have a song, we have a famous artist in Australia. Her name's Casey Chambers, and she has a song called "Not Pretty Enough." That's like the story of my life. And that, what you just said there, is that there were 3 breakout rooms. I chose the first 2 and I didn't get to the third. That's okay. I'm cool. Ask your question, please. I'm stoked for a cafe.
Could you just explain briefly? I'm sure you talked about this in the breakout room, so I apologize for any repeats. But could you explain briefly the LAMP mentoring program that you mentioned?
Oh yeah, cool. Right. So Sarah, I think it was, you were mentioning like the treacherous wild west of mentoring programs and stuff that are out there. And the challenge that I saw is that you need, in order for it to be valuable, you should be able to have worked with a real client, do a real project for a real company, be able to get an endorsement that you've actually done the work, and then have a cool project to show. So that's what we created, and we run the LAMP project. I just got real lucky with the acronym, Learn Awesome Mentoring Program. We run it when we want to, not because we have to. So again, unlike some of the Wild West programs out there, we actually send our IDs to IDLE. We might share their passwords as well with the rest of our team. So, we're a password sharing organization, rightly or wrongly. But yeah, what we do is for 4 weeks, you will come and work with Learn Awesome and me. You will get access to all of our tools. Chameleon is a New Zealand authoring tool that's the equivalent of if Storyline and Rise had a baby. Chameleon's it. It's awesome. They give you a 12-month license as part of being in the LAMP project or program with us. And then at the end of the program, your project goes to the Life Skill Academy, which is one of our clients. It gets published on their site. So it's a real program. It's sitting on a real website that's not ours, so you can link to it. You get an endorsement from me. And we've put about 20 people through, and I think 18 out of 20 all have jobs in learning design now. I've given references, like I've given actual phone references and video references for about 5 or 6 of them. And it's been awesome. And I think I said in my group, it was like, I think we charge between $500 and $1,000 depending on what day you get me on. But yeah, we run it because we have to, because we want to, not because we have to. So if anyone's interested, link on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to have a chat, point you in the right direction.
Also, I mentioned in the chat that
I think I've frozen.
one of our recent guest speakers worked with you, Raphael Ebai. He spoke at
He was awesome.
Yeah, he came in October and
He was so good.
So if you're interested in hearing about his story too, he was our October 2023 session. I'll put it in the chat too for those that want to see that.
It's a cool world out there, folks. Whichever stage you're at, like even, Sarah, you've been in it, and it's great to hear your story, but it's hard for us in our little island far, far away from the US to see what's happening and, the treatment that's going on. But it's the coolest industry. It's the coolest industry ever. You just have to rethink how you get into it, right? Whatever you're doing, you could reskin that as evidence and examples of instructional design capability. What you don't need to be doing is saying, oh, in the classroom as a teacher, this is what I did. Please give me a job as an instructional designer. Just go, hey, I said in our group just before, here's my lesson plan that I do in the classroom. Just change the word lesson plan to storyboard and change your I'm teaching 5th graders to I ran live facilitated workshops, and you're there. And if you want to argue the semantics of language, you can, but one's going to get you seen as an instructional designer. The other's going to get you seen as a transitioning teacher. And at the end of the day, let yourself and your content be the deciding factor as to whether or not you've got the skills and knowledge. Because I reckon you all do. If you're a teacher, you have the skills to be an instructional designer. Hands down. Hands down. It's enough for me.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about how many different titles there are in this field, and how sometimes things are not labeled correctly, right? So on LinkedIn, I have searches for curriculum, learning, education, enablement is one that like flies underneath people's radars, L&D, and I guess like instruction too, and training. There are so many roles in this field, e-learning developer, and just keeping tabs on what's going on. Sometimes I search for specific software like Storyline or Camtasia. Rive has been throwing up a lot of job, which is like, I don't personally have experience doing that kind of motion graphic work, but it's not even listed in the job description as Rive, but it will give me a bunch of jobs that I haven't seen before. And I always sort, so LinkedIn sorts by what they think is most applicable most relevant, and you have to go in and change to most recent. So even if you do in the past 24 hours, it won't show you the newest ones. And it honestly, anything that's more than 24 hours old has probably more than 100 applicants, and that's a tough field to then break into. When I first started looking, like a couple of years ago, I would apply to jobs before I went to school, because at Central Time, I was waking up at 4:30 before the rest of the country woke up and applying to those jobs that got posted at midnight, which sucks. It sometimes you just have to embrace the suck, and grind out the work that and beat other people to the punch, because if you're in those first 10 resumes, yours is probably going to get seen by a human, which is what we're going for. I got really frustrated with Workday, and I made a template. It's in the chat. Feel free to make a copy. It's all yours. It works for about 80% of the fields. I don't know how to fix the education one. Their back end is terrible. I even messaged someone that I know at Workday. I'm like, what are these fields titled so I can make my template? And they couldn't tell me what their back end fields were titled. That's getting too technical. I'm sorry. But steal it, borrow it, take it. If something's really broken, message me, let me know. I'll try to fix it.
There's been so much good information shared in this session. Any more questions before we wrap up tonight?
Mine wasn't a question. It was just I had listened to some recruiters, and they said sometimes when they post a position on their site in the morning, it doesn't always go out to the job boards until midnight. Not always, but so like if you can set up alerts directly with a company or something, sometimes that can give you a little bit of an edge before it goes out to all those other sites as a strategy.
Do we feel accomplished? Yeah. I don't know. I feel accomplished, it's late in the day. Late for me.
It's just helpful to be in a space where everybody's kind of going through it and has been through it. It's just helpful. Yeah. So thank you, Sharon, for hosting these, and thank you to the speakers also, and to the attendees.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That brings us to the end, because I always like to end on time. So I want to thank you to Sarah, Michal, and Steve for sharing your experience, your expertise, what's going on, what you have to offer, the resources, the things that you've been through. It means so much to people who are looking to break into a new field. And I know, Sarah, the next time I check in with you, you're going to have something great, and I'm real excited to find out where you land.
Got some things in the works. It's exciting.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Awesome. All right. I hope to see you guys back here March 5th. The link is in the chat, and do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and see you in a month. Have a great night, all.